what the two things that are really damaging hospitality now, and they've cost about 90,000 businesses in pubs and restaurants up and down this country, is the jobs tax, which really hits pubs hardest, and this desperately bad employment rights bill that's coming down the track, which has put huge burdens on small businesses. So those are the kind of things we need to scrap.
Kevin, very good to see you. You founded your own business, and as a former small business minister, since you became party chairman, what have the Conservative Party been doing to engage with small business owners?
Well, quite a lot. I mean, I think I'm glad you said small business, because too often for me, I've been in politics for 10 years, member of parliament for 10 years. 8 years of that I was sat in the back benches. And I, like a lot of people, I guess, were frustrated by sometimes the rhetoric coming out of government, whoever the government of the day was. Sometimes ours, when you talk about business, you talk about big business like Google and Unilever and all that. And these are great companies employing lots of people and spending lots on research and development. Of course, we want them here, but really, to my mind, having been a business person myself, started a small business and taking it into a large one, it was that's where it's at. That's what creates the dynamic effect in the economy. So, much as we're engaging with all businesses here, and we need to reconnect, small business is the priority in my view. And so what are we doing? Okay, so we've got this Conservative Business Network, a new club that people can join. You can go on our website or email businessrelations@conservative.com. That's our advert for the interview. So because we want to have the conversation, and as well as that, we're actually doing some outreach, I think it's called, where we email out businesses and say, come on a call with us, talk to us about your business challenges. We want to hear from you, and we want to make sure as we develop our policies, one of the nice things about being engaged with us right now is we're kind of fertile ground for good ideas, particularly for small businesses, how we improve their lot. So we're doing that. We've got the SME Business Day, a conference. So our conference runs from the 5th of October to the 8th of October. We've got an entire day focused on small business, small and medium-sized businesses, which is great. So there's networking opportunities there amongst each other, but also I'll be there, Mel Stride, our Shadow Chancellor's there, our business ministers will be there, and some really motivational speakers from the business world. Debbie Wasco, brilliant business person, she'll be there too. So lots of things going on there to try and make sure that we again recognise, as I absolutely believe we are, the party of business, particularly small business.
And if you were back in Parliament at the next election, do you think IR35 would stay in situ, or do you think you should be encouraging small business people and consultants to incorporate and start building up some capital in their business?
Well, I know IR35, the change in the rules has made things very difficult for a lot of people who are genuine contractors, and that wasn't the purpose. And often when we legislate or bring new things forward, you always got to be aware of the unintended consequences. So I'm sure that my colleague Andrew Griffith, who's our business secretary, business experience himself, Mel Stride, indeed, our Shadow Chancellor, again, who started a small business that he built up and sold out, will recognise some of the challenges for contractors with IR35. Now, I can't make an announcement today that it's going to say I'm going to solve all this for you, but certainly it's something we should look at and we're trying to ease regulation. We want to, if you ease regulation, all the kind of animal spirits then follow in terms of people starting up, scaling up. That produces taxation, more tax, which is great as the economy grows, which means you can actually reduce taxation. So red tape, lower taxes is a good thing, provided you can make it all stack up.
There was a bit of research we did with small businesses. Has always struck me as quite surprising that out of the UK economy, there's roughly 5.4 to 5.6 million companies, but there's only 40,000 companies with a turnover over £5 million, and somewhere between 29 to 27,000 with a turnover over £10 million. Do you think we've got a small business problem, or do you think we have a problem of getting to the medium-size enterprise?
Well, you've always got problems in all those areas, but one thing we should recognise, if unicorns, you know what a unicorn is, it's a business that starts from scratch and gets to $1 billion market cap. So we've got more unicorns than France, Germany and Sweden put together. So these businesses that have made that journey successfully. And these aren't all tech businesses. There are some like Revolut, of course, tech banking, but also you've got Brewdog, it's a brewer. You've got Castor, which makes these football shirts and cricket shirts and that kind of stuff. You've got Oak North Bank, you've got Gymshark, there's a clothing retailer. And these businesses, Castor and Gymshark literally started on their kitchen table, as did Brewdog. They started in their garage brewing beer. So the sky's the limit. We just got to make it sure that the journey's easier. The two things we've got to do. We want more people to become entrepreneurs. One of my favourite quotes, G.K. Chesterton, said, "Too much capitalism isn't too many capitalists, it's too few capitalists." We want lots of capitalists, lots of people of all ages decide to make that journey to build their own stake in society by starting and building a business, as I did. And it transformed my life. And I want other people to have that opportunity and that aspiration. So to get those businesses, like you say, the high growth businesses, there'll always be a community of people, part of the community who will not be interested in going there for whatever reason.
What business?
But can I say, if you increase the numbers that get in the hopper at the top, if you get more people at the top, there's going to be more unicorns come out the bottom. That's one undeniable part of the equation.
And how do you think you do get more people in at the bottom level? Because with things like business rates, national insurance, if you want to open up a business that involves you having a small premises and employing some staff, there's so much fixed rate of tax that it makes it challenging for you to be able to actually fund the initial stages to get to that profitability stage.
Well, there's two things to make it easy. It's never easy. I'm not saying being in business is easy. You've got to be ready for some challenges. You know that. I know that. But we want to make it easier. So we want to do the reverse of what this government's doing. I mean, you want to keep taxes low and you want to keep red tape low, because those things hit small businesses much harder than big businesses, particularly the red tape. So you've got to ease the burden of red tape for small businesses. So, and we did a lot of this in terms of making sure that you could take people on and effectively they had no rights to go to an employment tribunal for 2 years. That's all been scrapped by this government, of course. And we did things like small business rates relief, where there's no rates at all on a premises under 12,000 rateable value, £12,000 rateable value, and reduced amounts up to 15,000. When we did things like the discounts through COVID, they were primarily targeted at small businesses. Access to finance or startup loans. If you're thinking of starting a small business, we shouldn't forget you are 3 times more likely to start a business if your parents are in business. And my dad was a milkman. So there's probably two reasons. It's cultural, so they encourage you to give it a go, give you some advice. But also because they're small business, they probably generated a bit of cash that they're willing to lend you to get you started. So while we were in government, we did things like help to grow, which is that advice stage, and we did a mini MBA free online. You can still go to it today. So you get some advice on the first steps. But also crucially, the access to finance, startup loans company, where it's a loan that you can get that doesn't need collateral. You can get up to 25,000 quid per partner. So if there's 2 of us starting a business, we can get up to 50k, subject to business plan. And we've lent £1 billion on that. We're up to about 100,000 businesses. So that solves some of those problems. So those are the kind of things we've done to make it easier.
So if you're starting out in business, the people you typically would go and ask are your friends and your family. But one of the great initiatives in tax relief we have is the EIS Enterprise Investment Scheme, where it makes it there's a tax safety net for people investing in early stage businesses. Do you think it's a mistake that you're not able to get that tax relief if you're a connected person? So your family members don't get the relief, whereas they would do if they invest in a stranger's business?
Yes, I do. And I get the potential unintended consequence of that is that there's a way then to move your money around so you get the tax benefit without actually taking the arm's length risk of convincing a new investor. So I declare my interest as both a business owner. I've attracted investment through EIS and SEIS, and again I've invested in other businesses through the same vehicle. It's hugely important tax break. It really reduces the liability, shares the liability with the state effectively for the if that business doesn't succeed, and many of those don't. So it's high risk stuff. But it's a great scheme, and businesses that are really ambitious, those business people who really want to go to the next stage and don't want to borrow a lot of money, it's the best way to do it, because you can get some investment and some advice at the same time, because those people are probably entrepreneurs.
When you're investing in an EIS or something like that, what do you look at for the companies that you invest in? What gets you excited as an investor?
Well, I made mistakes, so I don't always get it right. Let's be honest about that. And either the fact I have had 3 pretty successful businesses.
Yeah.
I've also had 1 or 2 that have failed. That's the reality of all this. So there's nothing precise about this, but the most important thing you look at is the person, and any investor will tell you that. If you are investing in somebody who is, you can see it in their eyes, this person is going to make a success of their business. Make sure those people are fully committed to themselves. It's not a sideline for them. That's probably not the ideal thing. But really, it's about the person. Of course, you got to look at the numbers and the concept, and you kick the tires and all that as well. But they've really got to be made of the right stuff.
It's really interesting. I qualify as an accountant, and I think a lot of businesses distill down into sort of spreadsheets and process. But actually, a lot of the successful businesses talk about the sort of emotion, the creativity, and the sort of desire to build something, and that sort of persistence actually plays out more than the big idea.
Determination. I mean, people talk about business plans a lot. I mean, I have never written a business plan, not in starting a business. Sometimes I've had to do one to raise some cash, but not in terms of starting a business. I mean, I started my first business, started selling women's dresses on a market stall. I mean, this. You can start a business tomorrow. If people think, you mentioned before, the cost of starting a business, the premises, the business rates, the staff. Well, this is the golden age of business in many ways. Yeah. You can be selling stuff this afternoon on eBay, on Amazon, whatever else. You've got a market out there of billions of people. So, and where you start isn't where you finish in business, ever. So, you can always do this stuff, and you learn, and failure is part of the process, and don't worry if you fail. Start again, learn what you got wrong, and put it right next time. I think it's an iterative process, and don't be afraid of failure.
If you were starting again now, what type of business would you set up?
The business, when I was first successful in business, it was something I knew something about. So I'd tried a few businesses. I was very ill-disciplined, typical young guy. And my dad said, go and get a job. You're just not ready for this yet. So I did a estate agency. So I'm an estate agent turned politician. There you go.
It's really interesting because there's a statistic that I think 53% of unicorn founders didn't set up in a sector that they had prior experience in.
Well, I admire them because that's so difficult. It's a double whammy in terms of if you're looking for both kind of new markets, new customers, new products, new customers at the same time, that's a pretty risky segment. But anyway, for me, so I worked as an estate agent for 4 years, then set up as an estate agent. So I knew what I was doing. So it'd be ideally something I knew about. I mean, I would be very tempted. I look at where the high growth industries were, and that's the most exciting part of any economy. Now, that doesn't say, you have to be in, AIs where all the kind of everything's going on AI now, but you're not going to compete with Google in terms of the billions and trillions they're investing in it. But there's some other things like, serviced offices, data centers, that kind of stuff. Again, that's probably quite meaty investment, but there's lots of things in the supply chain there. So I'd try and attach myself to an industry that is got huge growth in the future.
I think the change with COVID, where you can outsource things and you can use international labor and platforms are available to do that, as well as the growth in AI, means that the importance of building a brand, an IP, and an authentic audience is much more valuable. The tech is probably less valuable, but ultimately it still comes down to the products or service you're ultimately delivering. And that's artisanship and craftsmanship that I think is there.
Yeah, I'd add one thing to that actually, because products, you can have the best products in the world, you can have the best service in the world, but if nobody knows about you, nobody's going to use that product or use that service.
Yeah.
So you've got to be good at sales. And I built a business through sales. You probably did too, if you admit to it. You know, you got to get there and market your business.
I don't think you can ever get away from the fact that cold calling is a material part of success.
Definitely.
I think if you can't pick up the phone, then you can't do it. Very much like canvassing in politics. It's how many leaflets you delivered and how many people you called.
Definitely, how many doors you knocked on. Totally right.
How do you apply the lessons you learned from business into political canvassing?
Well, I mean, I think there's some commonalities in terms of we overcomplicate things in life, and there's only three things that matter to really in terms of communicating what you've got. You need a very simple message, a USP you'd call it in business, but it's a simple message. In politics, it's you present a choice in people's minds. That's what you got to do, and I can very easily create a choice between the Conservatives and every other party. You know, we're both kind of concerned about people's security, so the borders and streets, but also we do it in a way where we won't break the bank. So but you create a choice in people's minds, and that's the same for your products, it's the same politics. Then you've got to get good people. You build a coalition of people around it. That's critical. And then you just do all the hard yards. That's what you've got to do. There's no way of getting around that bit. And I tried that, and it doesn't work. So so that's it. It's the same in politics as in business.
So what do you reckon the Conservatives' three-word snappy slogan would be for small businesses? Get bigger quicker.
Well, I think for me, it's stake in society. You've got to say to people, we're a party of aspiration.
That's quite a good one, Kevin.
Is it quite good?
Yeah, I quite like that one. That's quite.
Well, it's what I've always believed.
Yeah.
When I started my business, my life was a total mess. You know, financially, it was a real train crash. But I always believed, because my parents told me this, you can make something of your life through hard work, but starting your business, buying a house, that kind of stuff, and that's what I did. And people can change their lives, and we want people to have that same thought in their mind, that we're the party of aspiration. We're optimistic. We're positive. It's not all. This country is not going to hell in a handcart. There's some basic fundamental things we need to fix. I think we can fix in a parliament. And that's not just immigration. There's lots of other low-level stuff we need to sort out. But our message will always be about aspiration and optimism, because that's what young people are like, even older people like me.
No, that's true. And I know this is a date that everyone's got in their diary, but on the 5th of October, it's SME Day at the Conservative Party conference. What can people attending expect on the day?
It'd be a great day. I mean, I've attended it myself. It's a relatively recent thing we're doing. I'm delighted we're doing it. I say too often we've engaged with big business and thought we were engaging with business. Not, to me that's not the right set of priorities. It should be small business first. So one thing, great speakers. As I mentioned before, Debbie Wasker's coming, proven entrepreneur, inspirational speaker. So as a really kind of her own 3-point kind of, or everybody does things in 3 points, a way you build a business. So she'd be great to listen to. Lots of other business people there, successful, who are going to be there as well. You can network with. Mel Stride, our Shadow Chancellor, proven business person himself. I'll be there as well. Many of our Shadow Ministers. So it's a networking day, really, of trying to inspire people. And I'm sure they always are inspired. And then a few drinks in the process as well.
Oh, well, that sounds very enjoyable. And
definitely will be.
Aside from the commercial pressures of running a small business, some of the biggest challenges owners face are taxes, for instance, business rates. What kind of tax changes are the party looking at to support small businesses?
Well, business rates is probably the clunkiest system of tax in of any of the taxes, because it's you get charged it whether you make it turn over any money or not. And the thing about it raises 30 billion a year, so you can't just scrap it. Labour said they're going to scrap it and didn't scrap it, and they just come up with some tweaks to the system. And the other thing about business rates, well, there's these cliff edges in it. Cliff edges are terrible for businesses. VAT threshold being another one. So anyway, so what we're going to do, well, listen, I can't, again, tell you policy on the hoof, but one thing we put in place, and we're very protective of, is small business rates relief. Because for lots of small businesses, that's critical. That's the difference between life and death.
From my point of view, the business rates seem to be a tax on the high street as a subsidy for online businesses. And ultimately, we have an administration burden. My dad was a valuation surveyor. I spent the time filling in business rate reclaim forms as my holiday money. I could do one in about 15 minutes. I used to get paid per form I filled in. But one of the things I always thought was the valuation office is an inexpensive administrative tool.
Yep.
The data it collects is challenging because it's constantly moving. The tax on the high street versus the subsidy to online makes it quite compelling to move that to a VAT model where it's based on success and sale.
Well, that's what exactly I said on Hansard on the internet. So,
Well,
I mean, the thing is, it's...
sadly, I don't read Hansard nightly, but...
No, yeah, no. I mean, we had 220 offices. You can imagine the work that's carried out both by the owner of the premises, the business owner, and the residents on the other side, and the negotiation that goes on. It's hugely bureaucratic. There's got to be a better way of doing it that doesn't include a cliff edge. Yeah. So, don't get me wrong, whenever you change tax, somebody's going to lose out. What Warren Buffett said, don't tax you, don't tax me, tax that man there behind that tree. So, I mean, it's always going to be something so it's always controversial changing taxes fundamentally.
I think what we've decided in this parliament is to tax airports very massively on business rates, which is going to make it more of a challenge to get people into the economy.
Well, this is exactly right, because what Labour said, and this again, a lesson for us, they said time and time again they're going to abolish business rates. And they came along and realised, oh my God, we can't do that. And so now they just tweak the system. Then they're going to say they're going to level the playing field between the online giants and high street businesses. They've not done either of those things. There's a slight tweak to people who have very large premises, but there's lots of retailers, normal high street retailers get caught by that too.
Yeah.
So really, you've got to think this stuff through. Which is what Kemi's said. She really wants to make sure we think our policy making through in opposition, so the policies we present we can deliver upon.
And nowadays, when I first started working, you set up your pension and you paid into your pension, and that was sort of sacrosanct from government policy. We seem to be in a position now where pension policy changes on a fairly regular basis. If you were a small business owner setting up, would you set up a pension? Would you contribute to it, or would you treat the business as your pension?
I do the latter. Realistically, I'll be honest with you. I mean, I think as employees it's different, and we changed the rules on auto-enrolment, so more people pay into a pension now than ever before, which is good, and people should be saving. It depends how you see your future. So I saw my future as you do, I think, and exactly how you describe. I saw my future as my future pension being my business. So I built that up, and I need to worry about that. Later on, as we got more established, I started to pay in the pension again. But I think setting up, you've got to go for it.
Yeah.
You've got to everything. You so focus yourself and every bit of resources into that business, reinvesting, so you can get through those early stages, but then keep reinvesting and keep growing. And that's one thing I think people from the outside of business don't understand.
How long did it take you to realise that you'd actually built a business that was stable and you felt secure?
You never feel secure, but you feel more secure than you did before.
Yeah.
So you always think I'm going to go bust. But I remember we started in 1992. The market was shot to pieces. We got through on the wing of prayer in 1993. I think middle of 1994, we looked at our bank account, and it doesn't seem like a lot now. We had 100,000 quid in the bank.
Yeah, a real number.
I thought, my God. And it came out of nowhere. Either they say the night is darker just before the dawn. I mean, at one point, we were just working on the coalface, and suddenly that happened. It wasn't like, it didn't seem to be from naught, it didn't track it between naught and 100,000. And I said, it didn't seem like a lot of money now, but it was a fortune to us then. And then we opened a second office, and it went down to zero again, and then back again, that kind of thing.
And when you were setting up your business and running it, did you spend a lot of time thinking about your competitors, or were you just thinking about your customers and your product?
Three things, a lot of threes again. So I keep it simple. This is our business plan. We want to win in the marketplace. So yes, we thought about competitors all the time. So we wanted to number one market share. We looked at our market share all the time. And we want to be a national business, even with one office. Number two, brilliant service to the customer, fundamental to that, and to our own feeling of worth and fulfillment and job satisfaction. And the third thing was we wanted to have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
That was it. That was the plan.
And being in politics now, obviously there's a rise of reform and that side. Do you think it's challenging? Because how do you avoid talking about your competitor if you're trying to explain where you sit in the market? Or do you think it's very much more about values and what the proposition is?
Well, the pig doesn't get fatter the more frequently you weigh it.
Yeah.
So of course you've got to see, we see the threat of reform. I think they're a threat not just to our party, but to the country, because their spending promises are off the scale. Just look at them, 140 billion. I think Paul Johnson, the economist at the IFS, who used to be IFS, said they're selling moonshine and snake oil. It's just undeliverable. So, we've got to do a better job of communicating why we're the choice that people need to make. So of course we look at them all the time, especially right now. There's no doubt they are capturing the public mood. But from your business, as I know from my business, is that the easiest job in the world is to stand on the sidelines and criticise.
So it's quite interesting, because if you take this sort of housing analogy, it's almost like you've got a house that's worth £500,000 and you're going in as the competing estate agency, being reform, and saying, your house is worth 750, I'll sell it for you and I'll do you a better deal. Yeah. But actually, that's not going to happen. But do you think the analogy works? And
it's just the weight? Exactly like that. It's a very good analogy. And this is what we did, because we had that all the time with what I would call shysters who come in and just pretend, not be honest with the customer, and but we'd take in evidence. So all our valuations would be evidence-based, square footage, comparables of other properties sold. And some of the customers were conned and didn't sell for those higher figures or whatever, were charged a lot of money in the process. But we would be able to demonstrate why we were right, and that's what we need to be better at.
And how do you do that in a world where you've got complex problems that you've got to explain complex solutions to?
It's not easy, definitely, and but we've got to get better at it. In terms of making it easier for people. It's not that people can't understand it if you sit down with them. It's just that people have short attention spans, and the social media world is very short attention span. But there's no doubt. There's lots of examples around the world of people who have managed to bridge that divide and make sure people understand the choice they're making. But we need to. I've got to say we're not where we need to be yet in terms of presenting that choice properly. But you'll find that choice becoming clearer as we go into conference and beyond.
So on a similar part, still continuing to talk about competition, you're running a competition to find the best pub in Thirsk on Moulton. There may be a conflict of interest there. They're some of our best local businesses and part of the fabric of communities. How would the Conservative Party improve circumstances for pub and hospitality businesses? Yeah,
definitely a conflict of interest. As well as being chairman of the Conservative Party, I'm probably the only chairman ever who's also been the Parliamentary Beer Drinker of the Year.
Oh, really?
So I know about pubs, and there's so much choice in Thirsk.
What's your favourite pint?
Oh, Edwardian Gold.
Oh, really?
Local brewery. It is brilliant. You must come up with it. How do we make things easier? We've frozen beer duty in the past and things like that. It helped on the edges, but the hospitality sector needs a sustainable model. The two things that are really damaging hospitality now, and they've cost about 90,000 businesses in pubs and restaurants up and down this country, is the jobs tax, which really hits pubs hardest, and this desperately bad employment rights bill that's coming down the track, which has put huge burdens on small businesses. So those are the kind of things we need to scrap.
I spent 9 years working as a cocktail barman because I wasn't good enough to be a waiter. But I fear now it would be incredibly hard to set up a bar or restaurant with the amount of cost you have involved and the need to continually keep turning the tables. And
definitely. What's your margarita like? Was it good?
I'm very good at margarita. I will do a very good passion fruit margarita as well.
All right, okay.
That's my particular favourite.
It's not a North Yorkshire thing, that. Just the standard one I like. Maybe a bit of chilli in it.
During COVID, I converted my father-in-law to passion fruit margaritas from real ale. So, and lastly, do you have a personal favourite small business?
Well, there's a lot in Thirsk and Moulton, as you can imagine, really brilliant ones. Well, I mentioned the Edwardian Gold beer, and there's a Helmsley Brewery, which is a brilliant local brewery, doing fantastic. But also in Helmsley, because I live near there, is beautiful town. There's a little cafe called Mannion's, and again, local business people. When I did the market stalls, selling women's dresses, John Mannion, the father of Lucy and Andrew, who own it now, He used to stand on the markets too. So then they changed their business from a fruit and veg shop into a cafe in York, and now they've opened one in Helmsley as well. It is brilliant. It's a must go to if you come to Helmsley, which you must do as well.
Yeah, very nice. No, I think this is some of my favourite ones. There's a cobblers in Llangefni in Wales, where if you get real leather soles done on the bottom of your shoes, it's about 70 to 80 quid in London. You can send it to them and they do it for 15, 17 quid.
Jesus.
Yeah,
much
better.
That sounds brilliant.
Yeah, it's actually really good,
Okay.
For me, I'm always surprised and think, how are they doing this?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, it's Malton is Yorkshire's food capital, and they do food festivals. So there's so many businesses there, and it shows actually. We talk about high streets, how under pressure they are. There is a formula where high streets can work again, and it's a greater mix of hospitality and experience, that kind of stuff. So it's great to see businesses that thrive in that kind of place.
It was really interesting. Someone said to me that the only way for the high street to survive is to focus on things that Amazon doesn't sell.
Yeah, that's probably
And I think that's probably pretty true.
Exactly.
I'm always amazed by, if you look at the high street, local estate agents do really well. And you end up thinking, well, actually, should financial services go back to the high street having gone into the call centres?
Yeah.
And actually, I think that's where you can get better advice and individual people.
Yeah.
And I think that side where you get A Plan and Coversure, they've shown that for the small business community, you need to have that relationship with the consumer, because most people don't want education because they just want awareness first, because they don't know what they need to be educated about.
Yeah, but I mean, the presence is important. Is that it works in our business and that experience, but the financial service sector decimated through regulation. So I mean, how many mortgage advisors there used to be versus today? There was probably a tenth of them.
No, as well. What's really interesting is the number of brokers, the independent ones, are probably like 1,500 now, but a lot of them are owned by consolidated groups.
Yeah, mortgage advice bureaus.
So underneath, there's 39,000 36 to 39,000 appointed representatives, where you've got people who've set up financial services businesses using someone else's permissions, but they're actually incubating. And so you have that next generation of people that could grow into it or next size, but they need that sort of relaxation of regulation to be able to fund it.
Well, I mean, that's the trouble with regulation. It just snowballs the cost of it. I mean, the FCA and FOS, the Financial Ombudsman Service, as you know, is the complaints body. The total cost of those two organisations, just the regulatory cost, £1 billion a year for people for their budgets. Yes. I bet it's 10 times as much as that in terms of the regulation, in terms of the in-house compliance of those companies, maybe more. Yeah,
and I remember there was an actuary I worked with who told me the impact of RDR, or the Retail Distribution Review, on financial services wasn't the change in business model. It was the fact that it suddenly went from a non-vatable to a vatable service. So you put a 20% tax on the supply, and funny enough, you've seen a reduction in the number of financial advisors. And it's, when I first started in financial services, you could get a private banking account with 250 grand or 100,000, and now it's like 3 million. So you just think the retreat in terms of people getting high quality advice has got smaller and smaller.
Well, Kemi said this a couple of weeks ago when she did this big speech on welfare. She said, we're trying to completely regulate out risk from the market. And you can't do that. I mean, there's no risk, no reward. So actually, what you end up with is less choice for consumers, which is bad for consumers. And I mean, your financial services, pensions, nobody ever goes out and buys a pension. You're sold a pension. You've got to make sure that relationship still exists, or people just won't save.
Well, no one wakes up and wants to buy life insurance.
No, exactly.
It's probably the least exciting thing you can buy someone on Valentine's Day.
Quite.
Yeah. Oh, thanks very much,
Pleasure.
Kevin. That's been brilliant.
Cheers. Really enjoyed the chat.
No, I enjoyed that. It was interesting.